Good evening and thank you for joining us. Before we begin tonight's regular meeting, I would like to welcome everyone to another virtual and in-person meeting. Board members and some town staff should be visible on your video. I'd also like to remind board members of two things. Please mute your microphone while you are not speaking, and please do not use the WebEx chat function. This virtual and public meeting will have public comments for ordinances and the regular public comment period. Town staff is available and prepared to help you confirm and attempt to resolve any technical issues. If you are having technical problems and are unable to meaningfully participate in this meeting, please email Robert Bishop. His email address and phone number are at the top of your agenda. With that said, I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, October 5th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hogan, will you take
Mayor Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott? Here. Trustee Clark? Here. Trustee LeKind?
Here.
Romanello?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Trustee Unruh? Here.
Okay, before us we have a consent agenda. Do I have any modifications or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Unruh?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Romanello?
Yes.
Okay, before we get into item 5, Mr. Foreman, you have one introduction to make.
Yes. Jason, step up. This is Jason Bertonius. Jason is a student who just graduated high school, and he's going to be working with us. He's our third leadership intern. I think I got my, never mind. He's our third leadership intern for the town of Monument. He's going to be working on projects such as government regulations concerning drones and some other working with our directors on some special projects. We use these leadership interns as part of a project so that these students can learn how local government operates. And so it's our third one, and we thank Jason. He interviewed with me, the mayor, and Madeline, and did really well. And we thank him for volunteering to do this. So, and thank you, Mayor, for bringing this program to the town of Monument.
Well, welcome, Jason, and we look forward to having you. Our second intern was not able to do a board presentation on their project due to COVID, but we look forward to seeing what you accomplish while you're here. Moving on. Ordinance number 24/2020, an ordinance approving a preliminary plan development site. Ms. Flynn.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm just going to wait for you to put the presentation on the screen. Ordinance 24/2020 Center Phase 1 Preliminary Peace Plan. The project is located south of Baptist Road, west of I-25, and north of the U.S. Air Force Academy. Specifically, sorry about that, northwest side of the property adjacent to Baptist Road and Woodcarver Road is 32 acres in size. Falcon Commerce Center Phase 1 preliminary PD site plan proposed uses and setbacks. The proposed uses for lots 1 through 6 is commercial, office, and medical, which is 12.31 acres in size. Lot 7 is 17 acres in size, and it's providing warehouse distribution as its use. The setbacks are 25-foot setback on Baptist Road, 20-foot building setback adjacent to Santa Fe Trail, and 20-foot setback on the internal collector streets. There's a 100-foot maximum building height, which is consistent with the original 1989 planned industrial park zoning and with the new planned development zoning. The Town of Monument's future land use map from the comprehensive plan shows this site as commercial centers, light industrial, and parks and recreation and trails as its future land uses. The commercial centers are likely to generate a high number of vehicle trips, promotes uses that provide goods and services for a region that traveling public, provides transition from heavily traveled main thoroughfares to residential neighborhoods, and light industrial is suitable for small office, contract trades, small-scale fabrication, and warehouses. Accommodates smaller business, office, research, and development space that require the distribution of goods, vans, and smaller trucks. The access points. The primary access point is off Baptist Road via Terrazzo Drive. The secondary access point is west on Wood Carver Road via Squadron Drive. A traffic signal at Baptist Road, Terrazzo Drive will be warranted by 2025 for the development of this and/or other projects in the area. The majority of the adjacent property owners are aware of the future signal and they are willing to help pay for it. CDOT will be responsible to maintain this signal. The project phase. First is access roads and utility extensions. Second is grading of the overall property north of Jackson Creek. Third is the construct the centralized detention pond in Area E from the approved sketch PD plan. This facility will provide detention and water quality treatment for the developed area north of Jackson Creek. List of the referrals reviewed and commented on the project. The Planning Commission hearing. On September 23rd, 2020, two people from the public spoke about the project. First, Mr. Dellacroce, who owns the property at the southeast corner of Baptist Road and Wood Carver Road. He hopes to maintain his access to the property via the gravel road called Jumping Mouse View. Mr. Bremer, who owns the land to the west of Lot 7, had a truck concerns because the proposed Squadron Drive does not line up with the Pioneer Sands driveway. He was also concerned about possibly losing the unofficial Santa Fe Trail parking access. The Planning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval. Planning Commission recommendation. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Ordinance 24-2020 Falcon Commerce Center Phase 1 preliminary PD site plan based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval with the following condition: that the developer grants an access easement to the adjacent landowner of the property to the northwest, the southeast corner of Baptist Road and Wood Carver Road by way of Squadron Drive to prevent said property from being landlocked. Next, Andrea Barlow from NE will be presenting her portion of tonight's presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrea Barlow with NES on behalf of Forest Lakes LLC, who are the owners of the property. Okay. I'll try not to repeat stuff that Debbie's already covered. So, location, I think you're familiar with that by now. So I want to emphasize that the PD zoning that was approved and the sketch plan that was approved in August of this year is set the parameters for this development, including height, setbacks, and so on. And this plan is consistent with that zoning and sketch plan. The area we're looking at is the area, obviously this is turned on its side, so north is to the left of the page there, or the presentation. And the red area was Area A, and then part of Area C is comprising this preliminary plan. So we're looking at for lots 1 to 6, and I would just point out with the lots 1 to 6, that lot configuration could change. We don't think there'll be any more than 6 lots on the site, but it could be that some of them are combined into one lot, so it could be 3 or 4 or some different combination. But the uses for that red area will be commercial, medical, office uses per the sketch plan approval, and then lot 7 is part of a larger area that was identified for a range of uses and specifically identifying that for warehouse and distribution. Setbacks are already covered by Debbie and the maximum building height of 100 feet. We don't anticipate uses in this particular location being in that 100 feet range. Warehouse is not traditionally a tall building, and nor are commercial or office buildings for that location. We are accessing the site for an extension of Terrazzo Drive. So Terrazzo Drive is already constructed to service the pilot. So we're going to be extending that south and then building Squadron Drive, which will extend to the west to connect to Woodcarver. We anticipate doing some improvements to Woodcarver to bring that up to standards. It is currently owned by the county. I understand that the town is in discussions with the county regarding the the deeding of that right of way to the town. So the town will have control over that, and another small parcel adjacent to it, which is currently the unofficial parking trailhead for the trail. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. As we mentioned, signalization of Baptist and Terrazzo is planned in conjunction with adjacent developments. It is warranted with those new developments, and CDOT will require the developers to pay for that, but they will be responsible for the long-term maintenance, as they are responsible for, they own the right of way from I-25 up to the roundabout. The other access we're showing on this development is a right in, right out off Baptist Road into the red portion of the site. So that's an existing curb cut that's already there. It's just as we look at it below the small cutout area, which is actually the well site. So that's the Dillon well site that services Forest Lakes Metropolitan District. And so just adjacent to there is an existing curb cut, which we will plan to use for a right in, right out, subject to getting the appropriate permits. We're in progress as we speak with CDOT. Comprehensive plan. The uses are within the categories of commercial center in that red area, and then the light brown is light industrial. We covered those use ranges and what's appropriate there, and just pointed to some of the specific policies that point to putting higher traffic generating uses adjacent to the main intersections of the highway, and also uses that will bring tax generating benefits to the town, and moving away from single use development to mixed development, which is what we're proposing here. So the plan review criteria, some of the criteria don't really apply to this part of the site. We don't really have any natural features in this section of the sketch plan area. We did address that with the Jackson Creek drainage way and associated mouse habitat with the sketch plan, and we're really not looking at any detailed architecture at this point. The other aspects of the review criteria that we do contribute to are positive fiscal impact, a variety of development mixed use, appropriate relationship between uses internally and externally, and adequate capacity for utilities, appropriate phasing, as Debbie mentioned, that we are proposing to include the centralized detention pond with this first phase. So that detention pond is intended to serve everything north of Jackson Creek Parkway. So that will be developed at this point, as well as the necessary road and utility infrastructure. And we are also consistent with the comprehensive plan. So at this point, this was pretty much finished with the Planning Commission, but I want to now just spend a couple of slides talking about the requested easement for Mr. Dellacroce, and the reason why we would like that condition removed, because we don't think it's necessary. So here I want to just identify the different parts we're talking about. So we're just south. I've turned the plan around now to the correct north-south orientation. So you have the roundabout at Baptist and Old Denver Road with Woodcarver extending south. So you can see there in the green is land that is owned by El Paso County. So they own that section of Woodcarver. They also own that parcel which is used as the informal parking lot. And their ownership actually then extends south to include the entirety of the Santa Fe Trail. The blue area is Mr. Dellacroce's property, and the red area is Falcon Commerce Center, just the northwest section of it. And then extending to the south is property owned by Native Son, and that's the remainder of Woodcarver. It goes to a parcel further to the south, and that is privately owned. So as I understand it, and I'm sure Mr. Foreman can provide some clarity on this, that the town have been talking to the county about the purchase of the section of Woodcarver and also the parking lot area. And so that was used as a staging area initially for the Baptist Road widening construction and the roundabout, and now it's, like I say, an informal parking lot. So Mr. Dellacroce's parcel is currently accessed by coming off Woodcarver, already crossing a private property in the context of the Native Son access, which is private, but I understand also that they are annexing into the town, that they are under discussions. If not, I don't know if they've submitted an application yet, but they are proposing to annex into the town to include that street, the remainder of Woodcarver. And so that's the current access. So trying to translate that into what we're proposing now. Here we go. So you can see Drive there extending to the west to connect to Native Son, to Woodcarver through the Native Son property, over which Falcon Commerce Center has an access easement to utilize that private street, irrespective of whether it comes into the town or not. But annexing to the town, I think, the intent is to make that public, that section at least. So we are proposing through our plans to close the access that currently comes off Woodcarver into that informal trailhead area and create a new access for it off Squadron Drive. Now, Squadron Drive will be public right of way. It will be town and monument public right of way. And so the new access will be coming off a public right of way through land owned by the town of Monument and directly into Mr. Dellacroce's site. So there's no need for us to provide an access easement through the red area to get onto Squadron Drive. So you'd just be talking about that area to the south and east of the green parcel that's currently owned by El Paso County and will be owned by the town. So there is adequate access there via publicly owned property, right of way and future town potentially right of way. That an access easement isn't specifically needed. Now, the discussion of this condition and access easement took place after the closing of the public hearing at Planning Commission. The little discussion about different things that they want to talk about, and we were not afforded the opportunity to respond to the framing of that condition. And so clearly this has been our first opportunity to do that. And so it's something that we don't think is needed. And we would like to see that removed from the ordinance because there is access. The justification for Mr. Dellacroce was that he would be landlocked, and the Planning Commission believed that to be the case. But the information I'm trying to present here is that won't actually be the case. There will be access via public property, and there is no need for another access. Now that, I'm happy to answer any questions. There's my summary where we meet conditions of the sketch plan and the zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan and address satisfactorily the preliminary plan review criteria.
Okay, before we do board questions, I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this ordinance?
And I'll stay away.
Right there. Okay. Was just called by Bob Dellacroce this evening to attend the meeting, which he could not be here. And his concern is, and his wishes are, the easement for clarity. And I didn't get to hear all of your responses on the easement for the access as to whether it's necessary or not.
We'll get our other comments and then we'll allow a rebuttal.
Okay.
Okay.
And then what he's wishing or desiring for would be a curb cut easement along with an apron, and to have the access at least 2 lanes wide. And if you put a median in, that'd be great as well.
Okay.
Where from? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Access from where? That's not clear at all. Sorry.
I don't know, but I know Jumpy Mouse and I know Wood Carver.
I'll try to address that.
Yeah, I wish you would, because I didn't get to hear everything you were saying pertaining to that specifically. And I just wanted to be able to report back to Bob.
Okay. Mr. Bremer, would you like to make a comment?
Duncan Bremer, I live on the other side of the railroad tracks. Some people say the wrong side of the railroad tracks, but we love it. And I do want to emphasize that I think Mr. Dellacroce should have adequate access. The fact that that land is in El Paso County's ownership doesn't mean that it's available for public right-of-way access to his property. It really has been in the hands of the Parks Department, is my understanding, and they have used it for various purposes like staging area for construction, but it has not been made officially available as a public right-of-way. Just because the county owns it doesn't mean that it has adequate access. So that really does need to get solved, what the county is going to do with that property and whether in fact the county will grant the right for a road across that property to the Dellacroce property. I just think that's an incomplete part of the plan. I suspect it can be worked out, but apparently it isn't yet. And I have one other comment on this plan, which again, I don't think is critical that it will prevent the proper development of this, but there's a considerable offset between where the location of this Squadron Drive comes in. It comes into Wood Carver south of where the existing Pioneer Sand access is, and what is proposed for the Dellacroce property on the west side of Wood Carver Road is that that same access would access other parcels that might get developed on the west side of Wood Carver Road. So you have an offset there. And again, it would be good planning to deal with that offset. There's a lot of trucks now that go in and out of Pioneer, both delivering product and taking product out, including very large gravel and sand trucks that Pioneer operates. And I think the traffic circulation at that point could be quite confusing, particularly as further development might occur on Mr. Dellacroce's property to the west of Wood Carver at that location. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone on the line that would like to make comment? Do we have anybody in the hallway waiting to comment? At this point, I will close the public hearing portion. Actually, we'll go ahead and take care of the rebuttal. Would you like to respond to the questions?
I really wasn't clear on the question, I'll be quite honest, but I'll try my best because I thought I had addressed the access options. So you can actually see go to the previous one, the line of the access into Mr. Dellacroce's access property through the aerial photography underneath the green area going into the blue area. So that is where access is obtained right now. And the plan will be, so that's the access now. The plan will be to replace that with an access off Squadron Drive going through the same parcel. So presumably, I would ask Mr. Foreman to clarify the situation regarding the discussions with the county on that land, whether the town do intend to take control of that. But I would say, presumably there are some prescriptive rights to utilize that parcel for access. It has been utilized for many years as the access into Mr. Dellacroce's property, and that provides a perfectly acceptable access into the site. I'm not sure why there would need to be an easement through the Falcon Commerce, be just to the east of that to Squadron Drive, where there's no planned access of Squadron Drive at that point. So that lines up with the planned access to the south, and we are providing the access into that parcel, and it provides perfectly adequate access. Now, the question I was very confused about was the request for road widening, medians, and so on. It wasn't clear to me where, on what road those accesses were being required. But we will be making improvements through this project to Woodcarver Road, which will include widening and curb and gutter. And it will also, in doing so, we can also address the alignment with the Pioneer Sand access. And I'll make the same comment as I did at the Planning Commission regarding future development of Mr. Dellacroce's property to the west. It is zoned A35, which is an agricultural zoning in the county. So it isn't zoned for development, but certainly not of an urban nature. And there would be a process to go through for any development of that. And that process would require that landowner to provide appropriate access to their property. So I am struggling to see how Mr. Dellacroce's property would be landlocked. It would be basically being accessed from the same parcel, yet instead of coming directly east off Woodcarver, would be coming directly north of Squadron, which would be a public right of way.
Okay.
It's actually an improved situation because right now it's coming through a private road, which is the yellow area owned by Native Son. So it's not even coming off a public right of way right now.
Okay. And this, Mr. Foreman, this might be completely off the wall or out of line, but if the town takes over the green property, how difficult, and would the developer be open to it, to just switch the finger of the, what was that road? The end of Squadron Road with the town property there. That would make it match up Pioneer and basically give them the same. Would it?
Yes.
Yeah, there'd be an offset there. What Andrew was discussing, and I'll kind of.
But it'd be a more reasonable offset. I mean, how far much of an offset are we talking?
It's actually better to be more offset than less offset, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because if we were to move, I think what you're suggesting is to move Squadron to where the green area is, and then there would be a very slight offset, and you would have more conflicts with that. I mean, it's almost like it would be it wouldn't quite be overlapping, but it wouldn't be lined up. And probably more flexibility to move the Pioneer.
Well, that would be my
That's
next question.
what I was going to suggest. We have a property owner that is inside the town, or potentially is going to be inside the town, versus a property owner who's not inside the town.
And so I'd like to work with the property owner that's inside the town first. And then if we are able to annex or able to work with the property owner outside of the town, we can do that. I've got I think Debbie's setting up a meeting with Mr. Dellacroce and myself next week, or is that the week after?
Oh, Larry was setting that up.
Larry's setting that up. So we're going to have a meeting with him to try to work out all these issues that are concerning to him. But like Andrea said, we are working with the county right now to annex all of this property and take over some of the ownership other than the Santa Fe Trail. And then we're also creating a three-party IGA with Falcon Commerce Center and also with Native Sons to be able to make sure that we improve Wood Carver Road and then also have future maintenance of Wood Carver Road going to the south through Native property.
Okay.
Is Dellacroce wanting alignment or not alignment? I'm a little confused.
Dellacroce is looking for a different, he's looking at something different. I don't think.
As I understood it, Mr. Dellacroce is looking to ensure he has access to his property. And there was some references, some improvements, which
What does
that was
the alignment with the
it was
Pioneer
Mr. Bremner who mentioned the alignment matter.
Road? Okay. Can you go back to okay.
So that's current.
Yes,
Mr.
that's the current
Dellacroce's access.
And it's currently a gravel road too.
And
Can't hear who's speaking.
where the old Denver is in the way in the red over there is what you're saying? You better actually, okay. Can you on that one? That's better.
With the microphone.
Right. Right here. Okay. So that curve doesn't exist right now? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm sorry?
That curve doesn't exist right now?
That does not exist.
Okay.
It's fenced if it does exist.
Is that true? I mean,
The access is right from this road right into that.
There is an access there. I believe both. I think both access points are available.
That's good to know because it's totally fenced from here all the way across with the gate here at the end.
okay. And then can you go to the next one now? I mean, it'd be good to see them next to each other, but okay, so now we're in graph mode, not real picture mode.
So
okay, good.
So Mr. Dellacroce's concern is that the public land remains access for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
From directly across as it is from Pioneer right now.
So if it stays like that and we own it, that's not the developer's say.
Right. It's ours.
So would it stay? I guess is what I would be asking you.
We could make it stay. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
What I'm trying to why line up with the Pioneer Road? I don't. Why is that important?
It's not important other than it just
Not for this.
makes symmetrical sense, I guess.
Okay. Say again.
Oh, sorry.
We-
The
we
driveways
can't
would
hear.
be too, sorry, someone else had the mic at the time. The driveways would be too close to each other if we keep as is with the dirt road and Squadron Drive. So it has to be one, both.
So then in
access.
this graph here, then Squadron, the dirt road is just north of Squadron. Am I seeing that correctly?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. But you go into Squadron Road and that northbound through the green is a paved street?
That will be a new access. So it won't be paved. It will be going into a gravel lot as it does now.
Okay.
So that whole area is gravel. So instead of coming off Wood Carver, our proposal is, and this is not just to avoid having two accesses close together, it's to avoid having two crossings of the Santa Fe Trail close together.
Right.
So instead of coming off Wood Carver, you would go on to Squadron and go north instead, and then get access exactly the same way.
And this is also the development that we discussed before about possibly moving the Santa Fe Trail?
No.
No.
All right, I just want to clarify that.
No, it's,
Well, this should be on scale on the full plan on this, would it not?
The rise of quadrant's about 80 feet, so it looks like it's probably about 100 feet would be my guess, without measuring it off, without having something to measure it. Yeah. So our preliminary plan clearly shows that proposed access point, and it lines up with the access we have to the south going into our south parcel. And it provides Mr. Dellacroce access to his property. Now, it might not be where his current gate is, but I mean, if he wants to develop his property, or even if he doesn't want to develop his property, he will have access to it. The existing, the road that is shown there, that's going to go away. So that road, the Preble Mouse Way is going to go away in that location because the new access that currently provides access to the wastewater facility, the Monument Tri-Lakes wastewater facility.
And so the Squadron Way would be just below the green on this one.
It would be just below the green, and then it would extend to the east and meet with Terrazzo. And from there, from that end point, the gravel road would then connect to the south to continue to provide access to the wastewater facility. So that part of that gravel road is not going to remain.
And then if what Dellacroce's advocates here are saying is that if really the entrance is further east anyway, this is going straight up the middle as to where this is presented, but where you're saying this doesn't exist currently.
That would actually be a better entry.
I would think so too. So then what is the problem?
But no, I think the question was, that's never been officially an access point.
But it will be
through
now.
the green.
It can be now because
It can be. Okay. Okay.
And that area is used for currently just kind of a parking
for the Santa Fe Trail. It's just an alternate access.
And
It's not really.
It's not an official
not
access.
an official one.
what you're saying is that it has no zoning or development plan at this time, or that it has no, what was your comment?
I was talking more specifically about the area to the west and Mr. Bremer's comment about providing appropriate access for that area to the west. I had said that is currently zoned for agriculture in the county, as is Mr. Dellacroce's current parcel. Let me just double check.
Is agriculture?
Yes, it's zoned agriculture in the county. So that blue area is not in the town of Monument.
Okay.
And that is part of a much larger landholding that Mr. Dellacroce has that extends significantly way to the west.
West.
And that is all zoned agriculture in the county.
West beyond Pioneer?
Pioneer,
Yes.
including Pioneer.
Including Pioneer.
Pioneer is a special use, is approved through a special use permit with the county.
Yeah, he has cattle and farmland out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Stevens, you had some.
Yeah,
comments?
I mean, it just kind of concerns me that, I mean, do we have plans to annex that little section there? Because it concerns me that what if El Paso County one day decides they want to build a park there? It just sounds like we have some loose ends here.
Green section.
Yeah, the green
The
section.
green section, we're going to take over. We're going to own it.
Okay.
So we're in conversations with the county right now to own that,
Okay.
except for the part where the Santa Fe Trail goes through.
So that's a definite, and that won't
We had
go
a
fall
con-
apart, or they won't.
There's no-
withdraw?
There's no objections from El Paso County to us.
Exactly. They talked about doing an IGA for this before we can do the annexation process, and then they're going to send us a letter stating that their intentions are to give us that land.
Okay.
From the comments, questions from the online trustees, Trustee LaKine, do you have any questions, comments?
I just was wondering how big that parcel of land is that Mr. Dellacroce owns in the blue.
What was the question?
What was the question again?
How big is the parcel?
2.8 acres.
Thank you.
Trustee Unruh?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay. Trustee Clark?
No, I have no questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
No questions.
Okay. At this time, if there is still no one online requesting comment, I will close the public comment portion of this hearing. Bring it back to the board for further discussion. Another question I have is, what is the distance between the two openings, Squadron and Pioneer Standing Gravel? How far apart are they? And what is correct for that? Please.
I thought you closed the public hearing, sorry. It's basing it on the, I'll go, yeah. Go to this one. Basing on the fact that the width of the right of way for Squadron is 90 feet. It's more than that, so it's going to be about, I would say about 120 feet. And I would say that intersection spacing of 150 feet is pretty standard. So it's slightly less than that, but it's sufficient to provide room to maneuver around vehicles. And
Okay.
Squadron is going to be very much a secondary access to this development. Majority of the traffic is going to come in and out via Terrazzo. But there will be some traffic, and there's nowhere to go south of here. So really the only traffic that's going to be utilizing this is traffic that's going to be coming into Falcon Commerce and some limited traffic from Pioneer. But that is an acceptable spacing, but we have talked about to be looking at getting a better alignment of that through the improvements we have to do to Woodcarver. Because
And
Woodcarver is not standard now for the traffic that's anticipated, so we're going to have to widen it, put curb and gutter.
And Mr. Foreman, you mentioned something about possibly moving Standing Pioneer's entrance.
Well, that would be an option in the future if they wanted to do that to line up to
Squadron.
Be their opportunity if they, because currently they're not in the town, and so we can't control what kind of access they have. Their access is granted through the county.
Okay. But your comment was that you didn't want them to line up?
It's not a case of we don't want them to. If they can move their access further south and line up with Squadron, that's fine. I mean, like I said, Mr. Dellacroce has that entire parcel, and so that would be a possibility. It's a dirt road access anyway, right. And so it probably wouldn't involve too much in that. Again, it could be accommodated with the improvements to Woodcarver. Yeah, there's no problem with it lining up as far as I'm concerned, and the separation we have now is acceptable. To move it closer, as was being suggested earlier, that I think would be problematic, to reduce that offset.
Okay.
And Mr. Dellacroce also is going to have an opportunity between Baptist Road and Squadron Road to put in access to both the sand and gravel pits and his property also, correct?
Yeah. Assuming
in the future when he wants to develop either one of the properties.
Okay. Additional comments from the board?
Yeah, I'd just like to know from Mr. Dellacroce's representative, is this new proposed solution acceptable to Mr. Dellacroce? Right here that's on the board?
Without having the absolute answer, I hate to assume, but if the town is going to own the green section, which is the auxiliary parking lot for the trail, can that still be an access route to that property? And you had mentioned, I didn't get to see your name, so I apologize.
Right,
Mike, you had mentioned that as a possibility.
definitely. We'd want to grant him access through that area.
Okay, I know that's what he'll appreciate.
And we had the question of the easement also, which you didn't get to respond to last time.
Not sure.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. The condition, yes.
So the condition, so I wasn't sure what the question was earlier, but our request was that that condition not be carried forward into the ordinance because we don't feel it's necessary, because we don't think an easement is required, as there will be access via public land to the property from public right of way across town and monument owned property.
Okay. Ms. Flynn, Mr. Foreman, do you feel the same way on that?
I do.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion from the board, we are looking for an approval without condition. Ms. Flynn?
After it was explained tonight, that was the concern of the planning commissioners, the condition, but it was explained perfectly tonight. And I think the planning commissioners are hopefully listening to this. I made them aware. And that was their concern. And if that can be alleviated, they're okay with taking the condition away. And
Okay.
so is staff.
And Mr. Foreman, you're in agreements that we will keep that as an access point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will look for a
Do we need to amend the ordinance or anything for this?
no, it's just stated as motion to approve without previous condition. One moment, Mr. Stevens, we're checking.
Mr. Mayor, if you would like to approve without the condition, you would simply need to amend section 1 of the ordinance to say the Board of Trustees approves the above identified preliminary site plan, period, and then remove subject to the condition listed in Exhibit A.
Can we do that as a motion to amend?
Yes.
take a vote on removing the condition and then take a vote to approve the ordinance as amended?
That's how I would recommend you do it.
Okay. Mr. Stevens, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion to amend the resolution or the ordinance?
Let me see if I understand this right. I make a motion to amend section 1. The Board of Trustee approves the above identified preliminary PD site plan, period, and removing the subject to condition.
Okay, we have a motion to remove the condition. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll on removing the condition from the ordinance?
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
I couldn't hear that.
That was a yes.
That was okay. Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes,
Trustee Clark,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-1. Now, do we have a motion to approve ordinance as amended?
Approve the ordinance as amended.
Do we have?
second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes,
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Clark, Trustee Clark,
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, no.
Unruh,
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0. Ordinance 5B, ordinance number 25-2020, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument authorizing the approval and creation of Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District. Mr. Foreman.
Yes, Mayor and Board, thank you for this. On September 28th, Andrew gave you a background report on this. Town staff received the attached application and proposed service plan for town approval of the creation of Jackson Creek Commercial Metro District. The Creekside Developer Incorporated request approval for creation of a metro district for the purpose of building and maintenance of public improvement, including streets, traffic safety control, street lighting, sanitary sewer, water, landscaping, storm drainage, park and recreation improvements, and facility for the development in accordance with plans described in the service plan for the district. It's going to introduce the present tonight, and then after that, probably, I think our town attorney would like to address you also.
Okay. Good evening. This is Mike Taylor, who represents Creekside Developers. He will be presenting the service plan for Jackson Creek Commercial Metro District numbers 1 through 7.
Again, good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees. My name is Mike Taylor, and I represent Creekside Developers, the applicant, who is seeking approval of the service plan of Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan Districts number 1 through 7, which we refer to collectively as the districts, in accordance with statute. Creekside, as a developer, has begun construction of a commercial project known as Monument Marketplace North, which was approved preliminary PD, site plan, and plat previously by this board. and it's currently in the planning and design phase of a mixed-use commercial residential project that'll be known as the Villages of Jackson Creek. Those projects, together with other property that I'll outline, will be developed in the future and are all included within the district's boundaries. As Mr. indicated, the districts will provide financing for public improvements to be located within the district's collective boundaries. And those will include parks and recreation facilities, streets and associated improvements, traffic and safety controls, and water and sanitation services. And as noted there, those water and sanitation services in the form of wet utilities, once constructed, will be connected to existing Triview facilities. The proposed boundaries of these districts overlap with Triview, and therefore under statute they're referred to as overlapping districts. As noted, an overlapping special district is a quasi-municipal corporation political subdivision of the state of Colorado that's separate and distinct from the district that actually overlaps with it. So I'd like to stress the fact that Jackson Creek Commercial Metro District will be a separate and distinct entity from Triview, even though it's located whole within Triview's boundaries. Creekside is required by statute, previously obtained Triview's consent to the formation of the districts. For the property within the district boundaries will be supplied by Triview and constructed. As noted, the wet utilities within those boundaries, within the district's boundaries, will connect to existing Triview wet utility facilities. It's anticipated that the districts and Triview will enter into mutual intergovernmental agreements in the future related to the coordination of services and the defining of their respective obligations with regard to this property. Need for the districts. So the projected cost of future public improvements on the property located within the district's boundaries totals approximately $25 million in 2020, $25 million in 2020 dollars. The districts, as proposed, will provide financing for a portion of those future public improvements, and therefore it's a crucial part of the ultimate financing of this project. The need for these districts arises because no funding will be provided by the town of Monument or El Paso County, and only limited non-tax-based financing will be provided by Triview. Before there's a slide that notes the fact that inclusion of districts such as these metropolitan districts form an integral part of overall financing plans for commercial developments throughout the state of Colorado. And as you'll see on the screen here, there's some regional examples. For example, Polaris Point is served by Copper Ridge Metropolitan District, and you can see the other examples there for Colorado Crossing, Interquest Marketplace, and Shops at Briargate. And again, these are just examples to show that this is a common financing strategy utilized in the development of commercial property. We are proposing a multi-district structure, so you'll note that the service plan is being submitted for Jackson Creek Metropolitan Districts 1 through 7. I would point out on this screen the boundaries that are proposed for the district. So you can see the outline of Jackson Creek Parkway. The very top of the page, that would indicate that the intersection at Jackson Creek Parkway and Higby Road. The side boundary would essentially be the boundary line with the east right-of-way of I-25. And then you can see the proposed extensions into this property, future Harness Road extension and future Cloverleaf Road extension. So I'd like to stress the fact that the districts as proposed would affect these boundaries, these properties as indicated on this slide, and they would not affect properties outside of these boundaries. Multi-district structure is being proposed because we believe it provides for an orderly development of the essential services and facilities and administration of a long-term construction and operations program. As you can see outlined again on this slide, the boundaries of this property, ultimately the build out, the duration of that, we don't know what that looks like, but we certainly know it would be multi-year. So one of the facets of the multi-district structure is it gives us the flexibility to deal with that so that as a specific area is being developed, that area can be dealt with from the standpoint of the improvements being put in place and to the extent any debt is issued. You'll notice also that it provides for a fair and equitable allocation of the cost of public improvements within the various development areas. So for example, the property within what is shown on here as District 2 is going to have its own types of development. We don't know ultimately what will happen in District 6, but by utilizing the multi-district structure, it gives us the flexibility so that participants, landowners within a specific district are not being overly burdened by providing improvements within another district. It also provides for the issuance of debt on a schedule that corresponds with the phased development of the property. So each district has the ability to issue its own debt and can do so when it makes sense from the standpoint of when the corresponding improvements would be completed. The use of this public improvement infrastructure ensures future maintenance. So as noted on this slide, you can see, and as I noted before, really the backbone in this initial Jackson Creek area would be Harness Road Extension and Cloverleaf Extension. As you know, those are both collector roads. Those would ultimately be, after construction, dedicated to the town. Right away would be maintained by Triview, and as I indicated before, we would anticipate some IGAs between these proposed districts and Triview with regard to maintenance of some of the associated improvements, what we call the streetscapes that essentially border these rights of way. We feel like that's important because it ensures future maintenance, because the maintenance of those roads would be handled by one of these districts who has a taxing ability and an ability to pay for that through operations and maintenance mill levy. So the basic tenets of the district's financial plan are a maximum debt mill levy of 35 mills and a maximum operations and maintenance mill levy of 10 mills for a total maximum mill levy of 45 mills Gallagher adjusted. Construction of public improvements would initially be funded by the developer as is customary, no cost to the town, and reimbursed by the district through the issuance of authorized debt up to a maximum of $35 million. Always, the actual amount of debt issue will be limited to the district's actual debt capacity, which is based upon the assessed value of property located within the district's boundaries and result in tax receipts over the term of the debt. Right now, the current projected debt capacity is in the district's cumulative financing plan is approximately $17 million. In looking at a comparison of that financing structure with other commercial projects, and again, I touched earlier on some of the regional type commercial projects that use a similar structure, you can see on the slide in front of you a breakdown of both the number of mills that those districts each assess and what is being proposed for Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan Districts 1 through 7, and then the resulting total mills, coming in at a total of 154.27 mills. And you can see how that ranks relative to some other properties, some other projects. So those proposed total mill levies are consistent with similar projects and are projected to decrease over time. The proposed 154.27 mill total levy projected to be assessed on the property located within the district's boundaries is, as noted, materially consistent with total mill levies assessed on similar commercial projects located within the vicinity of this project. It's been evaluated by Creekside's commercial real estate consultants who opined that the levy will not adversely affect the marketability of property located within the district's boundaries. So essentially looking at the commercial users, those ultimate commercial users, our consultants believe that that mill levy load will not be detrimental, will not have a chilling effect on future commercial development within the project. We also anticipate of note that those total mill levies of 154, which now include a mill levy assessment of 32 mills for Triview, will be reduced in the future in conjunction with decreases in the mills that are being assessed by Triview. You'll note that, again, 32 mills are currently being assessed by Triview for 2020. Triview currently projects a reduction An example here would be they're currently projecting for 2021 a reduction of that 32 down to 25 mils. You'll see an asterisk note on here that Triview's mill levies, again, currently can only be used for servicing its existing debt. So none of the 32 mills that are being assessed against this property will actually go towards funding any of the improvements, which again is a reason, as I noted, why these districts are necessary. So what will happen over time, and looking at Triview's own projections, is essentially, and this schedule was provided by them. So if you look in the most column next to the calendar year, you'll notice there's a payment due column there. So essentially what that represents is the fixed payment schedule on servicing that existing debt that they have in place. Next to that, you'll see a breakdown of their projections of assessed valuation and then the mill levies assessed against that. So the math is essentially this. When you look at the fixed payments that are due on that debt, which again is the only thing they can utilize those receipts for, those property tax receipts for, as time goes on and as assessed valuation is indicated in this schedule increases, both from a standpoint of further development within the district's boundaries, within Triview's boundaries, and biannual assessment, reassessment of the properties within its boundaries, they project an increase in assessed valuation as time goes on. Again, the math is essentially as that number increases, then the amount of mill levies that have to be applied to that to get the resulting number of resulting amount of ad valorem taxes that has to go to service that fixed debt payment decreases. And that's essentially the mechanics as to why Triview projects their mill levies decreasing over time. If you look at the far right column, you will see what their projections are at the current time. I would note that in this schedule that they prepared, in my discussions with them, this makes certain assessments in terms of future residential development. It does not contain a component with regard to commercial development. So we would certainly foresee, to the extent that this project, as it goes forward in development of the commercial property that's located within Jackson Creek Commercial Metro District's boundaries take place, that would just increase that assessed valuation that much quicker and would result in a quicker decrease in the overall mills. So once again, the point simply being that we believe that the 154 mills that are proposed right now are appropriate for this property with regard to how it ranks against other commercial projects, and we don't believe it will ultimately have a chilling effect on the use within these property boundaries. And further, we anticipate, based upon Triview's own projections, that the overall 154 would decrease over time as their mills on this property decrease. Statutory requirements. We believe that the district service plans demonstrate the following, which are the statutory requirements before you. That there is sufficient existing and projected need for organized service in the area to be serviced by the district. And again, that is specifically to allow for a financing of the portion of the public improvements that would take place within the boundaries of these districts. The existing service in the area to be served by the district is inadequate for present and projected needs. As I noted, there are no other funding sources for this other than developer funding and a limited amount that will come from Triview, none of which is tax-based. The town in El Paso County would not contribute anything to this. The district is capable of providing economical and sufficient service to the area within its proposed boundaries. We believe our financing plan shows that based on projected development and resulting assessed valuation, that these districts would have the ability to issue debt and to service that debt. To be included in the district has or will have the financial ability to discharge that proposed indebtedness on a reasonable basis. And as I noted, adequate service is not and will not be available through the county or other existing municipal or quasi-municipal corporations, including special districts, i.e. Triview, within a reasonable period on a comparable basis. The facilities and service standards of the district are compatible with the facility and service standards of the town. And essentially what that means from a practical standpoint is the roads, as I know, that would be financed as public improvements within this property, within the district's boundaries, would be constructed to both both the towns and Tri-View Metropolitan District standards, which are essentially consistent. And that would be the same of the wet utility improvements that we could be constructed and ultimately connected to Tri-View's existing facilities. The proposal as proposed would be in compliance with the town comprehensive plan. We would anticipate that the actual development plan and proposals for entitlements of this project would be before you shortly. There are some rezoning pieces to that, and we would be bringing those before you to basically present an overall plan of what this development will look like. Based on all this, we believe that the creation of these districts is in the best interest of the area proposed to be served. Again, thank you for the time to do the presentation, and I can answer any questions.
Okay, before we go to questions, Mr. Ricci, did you have something to add to the conversation?
Yes, I think we wanted to address some of the concerns related to money availability and the projections of Tri-View Metropolitan District. The town staff can't speak to Tri-View's aspirational desires for what it believes its imposed mill rate will be in the future. We're, again, unaware of those and can't speak to whether or not those are going to be true in the future. We do also have some concerns that Tri-View could provide these services, but is not. They do get 3 mills property tax from the town of Monument that is given to them because we split it through the IGA. They could get that money. They also get half of our sales and property tax for this area, but are refusing to provide any of those funds toward the installation of water, sewer, or other infrastructure. Tri-View's refused this, but staff is unable to determine that there is a legal prohibition in this particular case. So we wanted to bring that to your attention. And the options before you, the next thing I'd like to go over is the options before you. You can approve without condition or modification the service plan submitted. You can disapprove the service plan submitted, or you can conditionally approve. You can make changes. As you saw with the last ordinance, you may make a condition like you saw with the last ordinance where you say the amount can be limited to X or whatever it is the trustees desire. So I wanted to give you those options and make sure that those are clear.
Briefly, could you go through our legal requirements as a board? Why special district, in a sense, is before us?
Certainly. So under Colorado Revised Statute 32-1-207 at SEC, the metropolitan district, any metropolitan district seeking to form entirely within the bounds of the municipality must get approval for its service plan from the municipality. So that is why this particular request is before the town trustees at this time.
Okay. Also, I agree. Sir, can you go back to the slide showing Tri-View's projected mill levy? On here it shows 2021 as a reduction of 7 mills from where they're currently at. Wouldn't that need to be on this ballot? Sure.
I don't think you can answer that.
What we have here, and I think this is, I tried to explain this in paragraph 3 of my memorandum, is that they have an authorized mill rate of 35 mills. They have, through their budgetary process, voted to impose 32 mills. They could impose less or more up to that 35 mills, depending through their budget process how that works out.
So as long as they don't go over their authorized mill levy, they can charge whatever they want below that without going back to the voters. It has to be authorized by their board.
Their mill levy says something to the effect of they may charge up to 35 mills. They may impose up to 35 mills.
You said without going back to the voters, this is primarily commercial district. So you're about the businesses in that area would vote on that?
No, the citizens of Tri-View would vote on that.
Tri-View's mills
Yeah.
are based
Mills.
upon, are a Tri-View Metropolitan District wide
Right.
imposed millage. So all eligible voters.
You guys are talking about tri-views though, not
No.
proposal. Just to delineate difference on what you're talking about. What you're talking about right now is tri-views currently got. We're not talking about the proposal here for this.
So we certainly
Correct.
don't mean to confuse anything with regard to talking about Tri-View. Again, the only reason for bringing that up is because we believe that what's going to happen overall on this property will be a decrease in overall mills as time goes on. We're simply basing that upon discussions we've had with Tri-View and what they forecast. And again, as noted, those 32 mills that are being imposed on this property right now bring nothing to this property from the standpoint of future construction of infrastructure. It is only utilized by Tri-View to service existing debt.
Well, so what you're saying is that, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's an ordinance and you asked the attorney to speak. Did you want to do public first before we get into it?
Yeah, we can open up the public hearing portion of this. Ms. Flynn, do we have anybody to publicly speak on this? Okay. Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online that would like to speak upon this? Okay. We will leave the public hearing portion open for a few minutes, but we will continue on with our discussion. Trustee Romanello?
Okay, so you're using this saying, oh yeah, if this thing works great, we can reduce the mills for the residents. Is that kind of bottom line what you're trying to say?
Well, I would back up on the use of the term residence because the area that we're talking about is noted in the boundary map is essentially is going to be zoned and built out as commercial. So with regard to if we're using the term residence to refer to commercial property owners, then that's correct.
Okay, no, that's not what I'm asking.
Okay.
What I'm asking.
Tim, do you ever speak your microphone?
What I'm asking is the chart that you showed, Tri-View's current mills that they dropped. Are you insinuating that if this does well, that it can lower Tri-View's mills? It sounded like that.
The comment that I made in that regard was, when you look at Tri-View's projection as indicated on the slide, and let me get to that slide. Again, this schedule was provided by Tri-View as a forecast going forward of what they foresee happening. The way they built this was based upon forecasts of future residential development, not including commercial development and specifically not including this project. So again, we see the potential based on our conversations with Tri-View that these mills decrease, that their mills decrease over time. Additional commercial,
more build out.
additional development. And again, their schedule is based upon additional future residential development. So what I said was this project, since this schedule doesn't include any commercial projection, if this project goes forward, then that additional valuation that's being added, that additional development that's being added would just go towards accelerating this process that they're projecting. It would just add an increase in the assessed valuation noted on his schedule, which would drive those mills lower.
I see. So just to clarify for the people that might not understand this, is that it's the build out of this driving up valuation because this money doesn't go to Tri-View. It stays in this metro district. You're counting on valuation.
But keep in mind that all of this property is located within the boundaries of Tri-View.
Correct, but
right?
but the service plan, it doesn't give money to Tri-View.
It absolutely does not.
So let's make that clear.
Okay.
Okay, so then 45 mills, you got 10 for O&M, which you project and hope will work. What does the bond indenture say? Does the bond indenture say 35 mills go to the bond indenture, or are you just putting in here 35 mills? Because I've been in a metro district where the service plan was approved by the board that said 30 mills, when indeed the bond indenture said that up to 35 mills would go, and they were hoping on valuation that 30 mills would pay the bond amount When it doesn't, then it jacks up. So what does the bond indenture say?
So I'm going to refer here real quickly. So Pat Herbachik with the firm of Spencer Fain is district counsel. So I'm going to defer that question to him to answer.
Thanks, Mike. Again, my name is Pat Herbachik, and we serve as legal counsel to the applicant. It's an excellent question from Mr. Romanello. And regardless of what the bond indenture says, this plan maximum is what would govern. So if the service plan maximum is 35 mils, can't more than that.
That's not what I understood through council for Metro District that I was president of. When we found out that our service plan said 30, but the bond indenture said 35, I was told the bond indenture would actually hold more precedent.
No, you as the Town of Monument Board of Trustees have the authority to set the maximum debt mill levy authorization under the service plan. That is what would govern.
Yeah,
So
I'm still asking a question is what does the bond indenture say?
There is no bond indenture.
Okay, you don't have okay.
A bond indenture will only come along if and when bonds are proposed to be issued.
Okay.
And at that time, that maximum debt mill levy will be constrained, A, by the service plan, and B, by the electoral authorization. But more importantly for your question, if 35 mils is the maximum authorized debt mill levy, that's the maximum. Now, there is a caveat, as Mr. Taylor pointed out, and it's subject to the Gallagher Amendment. So it can be Gallagherized going forward, again, depending on what happens this November, next month. But the maximum is still 35.
Okay, do you have in your presentation the table that shows your guys' bond repayment plan?
I don't have it in my presentation. It is in the service plan.
Okay, no, I'm looking at it. It looks very familiar. Are you familiar with what happened to Village Center Estates?
I'm not.
Okay. This looks very much like that. It almost looks like a negative amortization loan with hopes that I'm going to get a promotion in 10 years. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like going in the hole or paying nothing for 5 years, and your assessed value projection goes from $2.4 million in 2022 to $37 million in 2057. So what it looks like we're doing here is approving a service plan that pays no principal for till 2028, and then on hopes of build out and valuations growing, you guys play catch up. Is that true or not?
Well, without looking at it, I know it's in the service plan, but the object in general, that is a projected model. That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
It is not, that is not necessarily what's going to happen.
Of course not.
What happens is going to be driven by the market, right?
Well,
and it is going to be driven by what build out looks like in, say 4 to 6 years.
Are we firm in how much of this that we've approved as far as what's commercial? Didn't you say it's quasi or is it all commercial?
It's combined, it's mixed use. We anticipate some residential use in here as well.
And what happened if commercial didn't develop and say in 5 years or 10 years, like what happened in Village Center, they come and go, hey, I got this dead land. I want it all to be residential. And then this thing would eventually really never ever get paid like it is in Village Center Estates.
So as I noted, I mean, that's one of the benefits of using the multi-district structure. Okay, so basically as development progresses within a specific district, then that district can look at the financing plan for that district relative to what its assessed valuation is, what its debt issuance capacity is, and it can issue debt based upon that. So you don't have a situation where you've got cumulative debt being issued, again, based upon some, future projection pie in the sky of what's going to happen up in one of those upper districts. And it gives us the ability to finance in a specific district, to finance based on what's going on within its district at the time.
But you are issuing almost $11 million worth of bonds in 2022.
We're not. I mean, this is a projection, okay, from the standpoint of it's a model of what this could look like. Again, the modeling, I will tell you, is based upon a number of factors, okay? One of those would be projections that we've made from the standpoint of the market value of property and projects within this commercial boundary. So we sat down, looked at what we think the commercial uses would be within this, projected market values upon that, and then obviously that goes projected towards an assessment rate to come up with an assessed valuation. And ultimately what we're trying to project is what a ad valorem property tax revenue stream looks like. Based upon that, then financial advisors look at that, plug that in and say, okay, here's the debt capacity that can carry. So as Mr. Hrbacek indicated, this plan is by no means set in stone. We don't know what the timing will be of this development, and we don't know ultimately what the assessed valuation will be that will arise. We will deal with this again within the multi-district structure on a district by district basis to be able to evaluate that and make decisions at that point in time in terms of how much debt can actually be serviced and what that bond issuance would look like that would be taken to market. So we've got, as noted in the service plan, we've got total flexibility from the standpoint to look at what's actually going on, and the district, each district on its own can make that evaluation and decisions about, in conjunction with bond counsel and underwriters, of what makes the most sense in terms of timing and debt amount to take to market. So we as part of the statute, as part of the statutory requirement to bring this before you, we've got to make some assumptions and put some financing plans in place within the service plan itself. By no means do we believe we're locked into these, and as noted in the service plan, ultimate amounts of debt issued, timing of that, and how those would be issued in terms of how much assessed valuation has been built up before those bonds are issued, we have flexibility to deal with those decisions, and we'll deal on a case-by-case basis as development takes place.
But you are asking us to approve you to issue up to $10,750,000 worth of bonds in 2022, and another, let's just call it $6 million in 27, basically making no principal payments for 5 years for each. And what percentage of this valuation is based on commercial being built out versus residential?
I don't have numbers in front of me in terms of what it ultimately be. I will tell you it certainly will lean towards more commercial, and the residential use that we're proposing right now would be in this first village of Jackson Creek would be about a 252 unit apartment complex. And back to your question about we're asking you to approve that. What I would say we are asking you to approve is a service plan that allows for authorization of up to 35 mils debt service and up to 10 mils in O&M for a total of 45 mils. How that ultimately gets assessed, how much of that ultimately gets assessed, how that property tax stream gets utilized in terms of the issuance of debt are things that will be decided going forward. That's what the service plan that we've got before you is essentially asking you to approve, is those debt those mill levy authorization amounts.
I'll defer to my other trustees. Thank you.
I've got a question.
Go ahead, Trustee LeKind.
So once the bonds are issued, regardless of how you decide to pay your principal and interest, is there an end date where the mills go to zero and the debt has been paid off?
As proposed within the service plan, the proposal would be 30-year debt.
So there'll be a definite end date of 30 years from the time that any bond is issued for this project.
So the answer is, under the service plan, what we propose is 30-year debt. And so essentially what would happen is, when a bond issuance was underwritten, a writer would look at that 30-year stream of projected property tax revenues, and that would be their basis for the amount of debt that could be issued. So yes, then that issuance would take place such that it would be serviced, would be paid back over a 30-year period. Now, I would throw a caveat in that a lot of times on these types of issuance, there may be a call feature in there. So it could actually be earlier than that. But again, the structure we're proposing, as noted in the service plan, would be a 30-year amortization period for debt issuance.
And then what do the, how is the district going to maintain and operate the development after the debt is paid?
So again, what we're proposing is a 35 mil assessment for debt service and a 10 mil assessment for O&M, for operations and maintenance. So in answer to your question, if ultimately that debt is fully serviced and that 35 mils is no longer necessary, and again, I would note not to again confuse things with the examples of TriView that we've talked about, but it's a similar scenario in that if that ultimately is serviced through that debt, that 10 mil O&M assessment would still be available for future maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Other board questions? Trustee Clark?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Trustee Unruh?
Nothing at the moment.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes, I do have a question. Is there a board that has been established that is going to be presiding over the Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District, or is it the same board as what TriView has?
No, it would be an independent board, and currently, as is customary, it would be a developer-appointed board initially.
And if I recall, we have to approve it before you're allowed to develop that board, correct?
That's not correct for Title 32 Metropolitan District.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board at this time?
Trustee LeKine, do you remember what the budget of Village Center Metro District is for operations a year?
Nothing.
You mean outside the percent?
What's the dollar amount? Is it a couple 100,000, 200 to 300?
I don't know. I haven't had I just know that we're at 50 mils.
That's okay. All right, because what this thing's showing here on this potential and at 10 mils in 2030 based on assessed value, and this thing's sideways, sorry.
What page is this? I was looking for that. What page?
I don't know. This thing is page 3, but it's not page 3 of the actual report. And this has been really helpful to have up. But I mean, I recall us being between 200,000 and 300,000 for residential. I don't see 200,000 to 300,000 maintaining a commercial area this large. But unless you're doing cams and other charges to business owners that I don't know about, and that's in 2030 at a $27 million estimation.
Okay, we will pause for a minute for public comment. You let me know when Mr. Griffin is connected and we will have him speak.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Griffin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. You asked about the Village Center Metro District, and it's one of my concerns because that was a big hit when I moved here to Monument. But right now, their operating budget is 15 mils, which comes into about $167,000, and the debt budget is 35 mils. But note that the Village Center Metro District's debt budget doesn't even bring in enough money to cover the full principal payment. So, you know, that debt right now we look is going to go indefinitely. So my concern is, you know, how much debt is going to be authorized to go with this thing. And then the other concern for the TriView area is to make sure that they have protections that the rest of the residents that aren't part of the commercial district don't get hit with additional mill levies to cover the commercial district that they weren't planning on. So that's my only comment. Thanks.
Okay. If there are no other public comments, we will close the public comment portion of this hearing, and I will allow you to rebuttal to the questions mentioned.
Okay, so my response to that would be based on that example. They're not equal in that the comment about Tri-Views residents being somehow at risk for this commercial area. Again, Jackson Creek Commercial Metro District, okay, the mills that would be assessed would be only within its district boundaries. As noted, Tri-View's 32 mills right now, and whatever its mills are in the future, will not contribute anything to the development of this. So the idea that somehow residents within Tri-View's boundaries outside of this commercial district would somehow be burdened as a result of that doesn't follow, because Tri-View's not providing anything from the standpoint of putting improvements into this commercial area.
So you're paying their mill, part of the mills, or is their mills that goes to service their debt, and there's no benefit to the project at all coming from Tri-View?
That is exactly right, and I'm glad you made that point, because I've been trying for 20 minutes and apparently not doing a very good job of it. But absolutely, the mills that they have out there right now, which is currently 32 mills, right, does nothing as far as contributing towards any of the infrastructure development within this commercial area, which is again why we have a need for this. Quite frankly, if that wasn't true, if Tri-View's mills that were being assessed against this portion of the property were going towards paying for the infrastructure, a portion of the infrastructure within this area, we wouldn't be here tonight.
So I can make a point on this too, is that on the topic of Tri-View, they will take half of the sales tax and property tax from the town of Monument, and yet Monument will be on the hook to provide protective services to the shoppers and business owners in the form of our police department out of our own half of the tax revenue and property tax there. So it sounds like Tri-View is getting away with a lot of stuff as it pertains to this project.
So, yeah, just to continue with that, Tri-View is proposing on this ballot to go from 32 mills, switching 7 mills to O&M, even though that rate is assessed in your district, none of that goes to your district.
So O&M, if that gets passed, we would anticipate some of that going towards maintenance. Okay, and again, Trustee Romanello brought up before with regard to this other metro district that's being talked about, the fact that the O&M, he didn't feel that the O&M that was being raised was sufficient to maintain, and I believe he made a comment about some concerns about that being the case here as well. You can keep in mind that we foresee with regard to maintenance, now I'm talking about maintenance, I'm not talking about initial construction, that we would have agreements with Tri-View down the road in terms of sharing maintenance obligations. So it wouldn't only be the O&M that's raised by this district that would go to future maintenance. That would be an agreement between us and Tri-View in terms of parsing those pieces out to ensure that there's adequate future maintenance. So we certainly don't, from the standpoint of this other example, Metro District, intend to get ourselves in a position, and I'm sure they didn't, but would allow ourselves to get in a position where we don't have the mechanisms in place to be able to fund improvements, to be able to service that debt adequately, and to be able to maintain the improvements on an ongoing basis. The mechanisms we'll use to do that will be these districts in conjunction with Tri-View, and we think one of the benefits is that we avoid situations that I've heard brought up previously with regard to Monument Marketplace and the lack of drivability within the drive lanes within that development. And so we certainly don't foresee that happening here, because we will have districts in place that are able to handle those maintenance facilities. So we see that being a plus here. And we absolutely believe that the mechanisms we will have in place will be adequate, again, to pay for a portion of the improvements. It's not going to be all of it, and we've shown that based upon the financing plan that's in place. But certainly any debt that's issued will be serviced adequately. And certainly from the standpoint we believe of the facilities that are going to be put in place, those will be able to be maintained adequately as well.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Ritchie, will you once more go over our options here?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So you have three options here. You can approve without condition or modification the service plan submitted tonight. You can disapprove the service plan, or you may conditionally approve the service plan subject to the submission of additional information related to or modification of the proposed service plan. Those are your options. So if you'd like to require a change of the proposed service plan, you may do so.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Please.
So if we disapprove because we don't have the conditions that we would like to propose tonight, would they then come back at a later date to represent? And when is the vote of the people expected to take place?
I'm not can you clarify vote of the people?
Is there going to be a Triview district vote or not?
There is. I don't think it doesn't directly have to do with this item.
Okay, so there's not a timeline based on what we're doing tonight and the vote.
Not the what we're doing tonight does not have to do with that election. They might have their own timeline. Would you like to speak to that?
I just wanted to note, so our election date would be November 3rd, consistent with the general election date. 2021 is obviously an odd year, and under Colorado statute, the next available election, you've only got one in 2021. So quite honestly, if this isn't approved at this point in time, we will not be before you again for a year. And I will tell you that the impact that will have on this project going forward will be, we will not be able to move forward on this without the ability to finance these improvements. So I say that simply so that the board is clear of that there is some urgency from the standpoint of the timeline on this.
Okay.
Why is it last minute?
It's a process, and this is where we end up on the dates on this. I mean, we for example, you have a 20-day notice requirement, so we couldn't be before you in September, and this is the date we ended up on. And I have no better answer than that it's just a matter of where we ended up on the dates.
I honestly would want a caveat of some kind of a fiscal or impact study on these bonds, the payback, the protections, and everything else that isn't done by somebody that's incentivized to do it.
Well, I would
either our finance director or somebody, a third party.
Well, I would question that. What do we have ahead of us as far as this project after this portion? They still have to come back with each individual site, correct?
Yeah, they've got how many steps they've got to take before they develop this project? I think
7. This portion right here is 7.
Yeah, they have a project that they're going to bring to the town soon after this gets approved for a large project, and that's why they're doing this service agreement right now, because a large project is coming forward to the town soon, but they haven't submitted it yet.
So when that project comes forward, are we able to basically do the math from what's in their service plan. I understand this is just a projection to match up with our approval for that next project.
I think the concern is that they can't have an election until next year, right?
That's a true statement.
That's the concern. So,
But I'm not asking about not approving this. I'm asking the next steps.
Right.
Will we still see? So you're saying, okay, never mind.
yeah, if you don't approve it tonight, their next time to have it approved would be next year, almost the same time. They can't infrastructure.
Right,
Right.
they need to be able to get the bonds approved, and
Right.
that's what we need to approve tonight, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance number 25/2020, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument, Colorado, authorizing and approving the creation of the Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District and sub-district numbers 1 through 7 within the Town of Monument, and the service plan for the Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District with an amendment not to exceed 30 mills.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
I just want to clarify this before we take a vote, to make sure we're on the correct page. So this is saying that the developer cannot exceed 30 mills. Clark, would that include the separate mills for O&M?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm sorry, I don't think I asked the question appropriate. Are you saying 30 mills is the max?
Max
Or
total. The
40 mills with O&M?
The total for all of it. Not to exceed those mills for the total of the O&M and the mill levy. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Any comments from anyone on that?
It would be doomed to fail.
I'd like to hear from the developer team on that, I agree with.
Be doomed to fail.
Yeah.
Would it even be possible that the debt would ever be repaid at 30 mills?
30 or 35, Mitch.
Well, I mean, whatever the mill that was suggested, if 10 are needed to operate, they would have 20
mills.
left to pay debt. It sounds to me like it would never be able to be successfully paid off in 30 years.
Could be successfully paid off. What would happen is the amount of debt capacity that would arise based upon only 20 mills of debt service would be, disproportionately smaller than what we're looking at, that it wouldn't be sufficient to fund the project. That's where the impact would be.
So you wouldn't be able to develop anything.
Correct.
Well,
Okay.
I'm sorry, there was a motion in a second.
Well, I was
Sorry. Okay.
going to let you further information before we.
Mr. Ritchie, and is there a way to approve this with a modification that allows us to?
So if it's not a question in regards to the current motion, then let's do. Sorry, I thought you were asking something on the current motion. Okay, we do have a motion second. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll?
Trustee Stevens?
No.
Trustee LeKind?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
No.
Trustee Clark?
No.
Tim Elliott? Elliott,
No. Sorry,
Mayor
no,
Wilson.
I was on mute.
No. That motion passes 6-1, or excuse me, fails 1-6.
I'd like now, Mr. Ritchie, is there a way, and I'm not sure how often service plans are, can we approve this with a modification to review the numbers or feasibility of the service plan in 3 to 5 years and have that in some way? Is there a way to do that?
Would it even be able to change at that point?
I'm just wondering.
I understand that at this point, the town of Monument would have control over the service plan going forward and any modifications or changes to it. Review of it, you could require them to submit information, but if you've approved said service plan, it would be approved.
You said we could modify in the future?
My concern here is I don't know that you could modify it in a way that would reasonably impact, say, debt issuances that have already been done. That my concern is you would have some control as the entity to which the service plan for the Metro District would belong. The reality is, I don't believe that what you're talking about is necessarily feasible.
Do you have any people that want to comment?
No, go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
No.
I will just say this, that for people that are either paying attention to this or people that are in development business, I would recommend on a service plan to, number one, time before such deadline that you're under. And I sense that, and I sense that this project could be beneficial to the town. Does staff feel that this would be beneficial to the town?
Well, we feel the project would be beneficial to the town. It's going to increase sales tax collections and property tax collections and help our bottom line, yes, and create economic development in the town. Now,
With that being said, if there's no other comment, I'll make a different motion.
Go ahead.
I will move to approve number 25-2020 ordinance to the Board of Trustees, the Town of Monument, Colorado, authorizing and approving the creation of the Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District and sub-district numbers 1 through 7 within the Town of Monument and a service plan for the Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark,
No.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes, but only because there's a plan in place to pay the debt down and it doesn't go on forever.
Trustee Unruh,
No.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-2. Item number 6, resolution. Resolution number 41, 2020, a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement with CDOT. Mr. Foreman.
Yes, sir. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign.
this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Colorado Department of Transportation for the Jackson Creek Parkway Expansion Design Project. We have the opportunity to receive $800,053 through the signing of an IGA with Colorado Department of Transportation to design the improvements for Jackson Creek Parkway. This will require a match of $166,311 to design this project. We are currently in discussion with the developer on both sides of Jackson Creek Parkway to help us with that match. I'd answer any questions you have on that.
Do we have any of that match budgeted currently?
We do.
Yes. Okay. And this is the grant that came from PPACG?
Yes, sir. And you were very instrumental in getting that for the town. We appreciate that.
Questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion.
I move resolution number 41, 2020, resolution authorizing the town manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement with Colorado Department of Transportation for the Jackson Creek Parkway Expansion Design Project.
We have motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee LaKind?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
No.
Trustee Unruh?
Yes.
That motion passes 6-1. Public comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Anderson, do we have any public comments at this time? Okay. Officer Case, is there anybody in the hall waiting to make public comment? We will move on with board authorization items. Does the town staff have any board authorization items?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. Do any board members have anything they would like to add to the calendar as far as board authorization items? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to Board of Trustee comments. Do we have Trustee Clark? Go ahead.
I would like to make a few comments here for just a couple of minutes. I've been receiving a lot of complaints from residents, and just recently received a letter to my Town and Monument email with the present unhappiness of the residents with the closure of all the businesses to the extent that they are still closed in light of the COVID situation. They are asking for the Public Board of Health to cease and desist all of these requirements on the basis of the fact that the numbers don't support the actions. So I would like to bring that before the board and ask everyone to consider that and think about that, because it is causing incredible hardship and economic destruction for a lot of people in Monument. So I'd appreciate everyone giving thought to that and maybe possibly discussing it at the next meeting.
Mr. Foreman, do you think before the next meeting you could provide us, maybe working with Madeline and Chamber, a list of businesses that are still closed due to COVID?
Yes, I will.
Trustee Clark, does that sound good?
Sounds wonderful, Mr. Mayor Wilson. I appreciate the consideration. I'm sure the people will too.
Any other Board of Trustee comments? Okay, I have one for myself, kind of along the lines of what Trustee Clark just mentioned. I think we are safe and allowed now to have 5 to 10 members of the public here spread out if we need to rearrange our staff a little for future public meetings. I believe we can do that as needed. So I would like to maybe we could start a sign up, like 4 hours ahead sign up for regular board meetings for people to attend in person.
Still limiting the number of people in the room at all times to 10.
I don't think we are still limited to 10.
The report I received today was that we are. And we try to limit it to 10 as much as possible. What we're trying to do right now is as developers come in, we allow some of the people that are interested in that to sit in the back and listen, or either be right outside the hallway and have them come in and speak as needed. And so that way we're attempting to still keep it at 10 as much as possible, but also include the public to be able to come here and speak. And we normally let Debbie know, or either myself know, or one of our staff know that they're going to be here, and then we'll meet with them and arrange for them to come into the room.
Okay,
I can definitely get you the report that I got yesterday, or I actually gave it today.
Okay, I'd like to see that. I think this lack of public presence at our board members actually hurts us as a board.
I totally agree with you.
And
I'm getting a lot of complaints about it. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's something that needs to end. I want to get back to where we're having meetings in here to where the public is fully represented in here. I talked to Terry Hayes today, and Terry wants to come make a presentation, and we're arranging to have that done. So there's a lot of people I think that want to be back in here, and so I totally agree with you. It's just, we've got to work it through either the governor's office or the Department of Health to be able to get approved to be able to have more than 10. And like I said, the report I got today, and I confirmed it with one of our staff because Miss Hayes had asked that same exact question. And so we
Mayor
confirmed that
Wilson?
it still is 10.
Go ahead.
Mayor Wilson? I'm wondering, is there a probability of any kind that we can actually draw something up and present it to the governor to show that our numbers are such that these restrictions should not be applying to the town of Monument, so that we can open up as business as normal? Is there anything we can do that you could write a letter or go and appeal to the governor?
We could, but El Paso County Health would tell them different numbers. Not necessarily accurate numbers, but they would tell them different numbers.
I mean, are we not able to differentiate Monument from the rest of El Paso County?
Not without local hospital and health department support.
And we'd have to go to the rest of El Paso County to get that support?
We'd have to go to El Paso County Health, and then they would reach out to the local hospitals with their numbers for what comes from our area. And we've struggled with this. We have tried. El Paso County has trouble
Differentiating.
Between Monument and the 80123 area code.
And is it not possible to get an exemption from the governor as an exception then?
Not without El Paso County Health support and the local hospital support. That's what the governor's requiring for those.
Is there a possibility I could be nominated to go talk to the governor?
There is a possibility.
I would love the opportunity to be able to discuss this with him.
Okay. Is there,
would the board consider appointing me to do that?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think that with your position in the town, that would probably be the most effective route if somebody was going to talk to the governor.
Okay.
Or you guys can go talk to them together.
I've reached out to we haven't gotten any assistance. Even when we've tried to work through the county. Now, my understanding, things are opening up more, and I'm interested in seeing what Mr. Foreman has done today, because what they were advertising last week doesn't sound like it's on the same level.
There was a lot of confusion on Friday when that came out, and it was interpreted several different ways. And so I think I'm searching for it now.
Mayor Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
I really think that he would take a meeting with me. I really do. I would really appreciate the opportunity to at least try for the sake of our citizens.
Okay, that would have to be whether the board is in agreement or not.
Can we ask them?
Yes, we can ask them.
Thank you so much.
Trustee Stevens? No problem there.
I'm not against it, it's fine.
Trustee or Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Any efforts I'm in favor of.
Trustee LeKind?
I have no issue with Trustee Clark going and talking to the governor.
Okay. Trustee Unruh?
I wholeheartedly, she's my wholehearted approval. I hope that this can definitely help the town of Monument, and good luck.
Okay, you have majority consensus. Please let us know in the next meeting what your results are or when the schedule is.
And
Thank you so much, Mayor Wilson.
To that topic, it all depends on if you determine this as a critical government function. And so that's where the separation is. They've made changes if you consider it a critical government function, but if it's not, you still have to follow Index A in Section 4C.
I would consider a hearing a critical public or a critical governmental function.
I think you and the board could probably make that decision.
Okay. Is the board in agreement with considering a public hearing to be a critical public function, which I almost feel silly asking that question?
Critical government functions.
On both counts.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yeah.
Trustee Unruh?
Absolutely.
Trustee LeKind?
Yep.
Trustee Clark?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I said yes.
Okay. Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Roman? Okay. So we will go under the recommendations that go along with the critical
Government function.
government function.
And I'll notify the health department.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yep. Where we're located.
Yeah, in case they forgot.
Exactly.
And Mr. Foreman, could I please have the numbers for Monument as far as the new cases, deaths that have occurred, current cases, etc.?
I'll go ahead and answer that. We have struggled to get them. In fact, our last conversation with them, we asked them to pull them off the site because they were incredibly inaccurate. So the only numbers we have showing now for El Paso County are all of 80132, which incorporates about 20,000 people.
So I can pull those off the website? Is that what you're telling me?
Correct, El Paso County's website.
Okay, so.
But it will not
Do I
give
have-
you,
do I
it will
have-
not give you specifics to Monument.
Got at it. So I'm going to go ahead and ask El Paso County. I'll sit down with them first before I approach the governor.
Okay. Is there any other board of trust or board comments? With none, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I sent that to you, Mayor.